Other sort of ways that we're sort of trying to combat sort of these impacts of the green revolution is thinking about fertilization and pesticide application. So this is sort of the region that I sort of mainly am focusing on now, which through lots of different tools that are measuring the reflectance of light off of leaves, we're using that information to develop machine learning models that are able to predict things like nitrogen status, which tells you how much of a particular or how much nutrients a plant has access to, as well as the detection of different disease and pests. The way that some of these technologies are being developed right now is using sort of satellite imagery to make these sort of heat map-like profiles of fields, so that the farmer can then use that information to apply either pesticides or fertilizer in a more targeted manner. If we're talking about really large fields, most of the time, if you don't have access to that type of information, you have to use way more fertilizer than maybe necessarily needed. And this helps us sort of cut down on the actual amount of fertilizer that we're using in our food production systems. And with that, though, there is the sort of risk of thinking about sort of the accessibility of those technologies. Like, how easy is it for me to sort of download a map and know exactly when and what time of day I need to fertilize my plants based off of this random satellite in the air? And so with that, there's a few companies like Bayer, some of the bigger agro companies that have like really developed these technologies, but they're not always super accessible. So that's sort of where a lot of the research avenues are going, is how to make sort of these deployable, targeted technologies more accessible. And so with thinking about sort of resource efficiency and things along those lines, the goal with sort of trying to feed the planet is to cut down on the amount of resources that we're needing to produce the crops that we need. We're moving from this sort of space of saying, let's produce as much as possible, to now let's produce as much as we can while minimizing our impact in the environment, so we still have spaces to live. And so with that, I think what we've learned and what we can sort of take away from the lessons of the green revolution is that it takes a community of individuals to come together. We need scientists, non-scientists, practitioners, agricultural engineers, all of these different positions to come together to help us sort of solve those solutions for tomorrow. As well, we need to sort of make sure that we're maintaining all of the traditional varieties that we have sort of across the globe. And certain countries have been doing really well at sort of developing these accessible seed banks, or essentially seed libraries, in which we can use the different these different traditional varieties to scan for pest resistant, pesticide resistance, drought tolerance, and other things, so that we can maintain them. And there's the potential that these sort of traditional varieties can help us solve food crises in the future. And then with sort of coming together, I think it's still important also to make sure that we're maintaining a diversity of people at sort of the intersection of sort of policy and decision making, as well as sort of deciding what crops get the most attention. And I think that by including people who have sort of stakes in those particular crops can be really beneficial on both sides. As well, with sort of combining all this together, I think that the future of food production looks really bright, as long as, sort of we're looking at the past and learning from mistakes, and also moving forward with a really sort of critical lens, as well as being open to new foods.